Okay, it is Wednesday, May 19th, 7:04 p.m. And we're going to call the Economic Development Commission meeting to order. Present are myself, Renee Deli, Laura Parker, Sandy Olerhead, and Cody Thompson, and several guests. We have a few items on the agenda for this evening. The first thing I wanted to do is introduce Cody Thompson. He is the newest member of the EDC. He's filling one of our alternate spots. And luckily for him tonight, as mentioned earlier, he is also allowing us to start the meeting and bring us to quorum. So the first, Cody, thank you so much. Appreciate your volunteering for this. And, I look forward to working with you, definitely.
Thank you.
So the first agenda item, Mike, I'll turn it over to you. I know we have folks representing Yale Appliance for a potential TIF or discussion on a potential TIF. So if you'd like to introduce those who are here representing, that would be great.
Sure. So we have Lynn Tokarczyk on tonight, who is working with Yale Appliance, and she'll explain and they'll talk about they're looking to relocate their corporate headquarters to Norton. And as part of that, they're looking for a TIF. And I'll turn it over to Lynn, and she can introduce all the team members from Yale.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I am Lynn Tokarczyk, Government Tax Incentives Consultant for Yale Appliance. And it's a pleasure being back here in Norton, virtually, that is. I was here a few years back, worked with some of you. Worked on New England Ice Cream, Horizon Beverage, Auto Part International. That goes way back in many other companies. And so thank you so much for inviting us here tonight. And I do want to thank Mike Unitz for his interest and support and for attracting Yale Appliance to the town of Norton, and to Paul DiGiuseppe, who is for all his efforts in trying to attract the company to Norton. And I also really just want to take a minute to congratulate Norton on all of your great successes with all the many companies that have located here. And I think that's really one of the main reasons why the company, as you'll hear, has an interest in expanding to Norton, because of Norton's pro-business climate. And again, with all the successes that you've had in the very business-friendly environment. So we have a brief presentation, but first of all, I want to introduce the president of Yale Appliance, Steve Scheinkoff, who's will be giving the presentation this evening. And then we also have Leo Goncalves, who's the vice president of operations with Yale Appliance. So we do have a brief slide presentation, basically a background and history of the company, what the company's proposed expansion plans are, and then we'll talk a little bit about the TIF proposal. And so I do have the slides, if someone could allow me to share my slides. If that
should be able to share, Lynn.
Yes, unless you have them on the, oh, you have them on the screen.
No, you can share.
No, we're going to be able to control. She's going to, okay.
Okay. Okay, so Steve, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for your consideration. I'm going to briefly tell you about Yale and the people that will be working in your town, and kind of what we do as a company in terms of work and community involvement. This is almost a 100-year-old company. It will be 100 years in 2023. We are an appliance store. We're not a box store or a hardware store with appliances. Appliances are all we do. We sell most of the stuff that you're probably familiar with, and we also sell a lot of the high-end stuff like a Bosch, a Sub-Zero, Whirlpool, Genair, Thermador, and many others. Can we go to the next slide, please? As I said, we're full on in appliances, refrigerators, dishwashers, laundry. We get into kind of the fancy barbecue, sinks and faucets, vacuums. It's one stop. It's not just sales. We pride ourselves in the delivery aspect of it, the installation aspect of it, and we run about 32 service vans fixing all the stuff. On any given day, we'll do about 100 deliveries and about 200 service calls and about 51 installations. That's how it breaks out. Next slide, please. These are the brands we sell. Again, a lot of this is, some of it's familiar, G Maytag, some of it, La Cornue is a French range, Gaggenau is a German company, Mila Cafe. We're gonna have a small retail store in your, in the Norton facility, only about 5% of it, but typically it's higher end and the people coming to your town. Our ticket's about 3 times that of a Home Depot or a Lowe's. Next slide, please. Okay. We're talking about bringing our corporate headquarters. Right now, we're actually operating, our headquarters is in Stoughton. We operate a main warehouse out of Campanile that we were there in 2011. I think in 2018, we bought one right down the street on Schumann, which is another 25,000 square feet. And just 2 months ago, we had to go and lease another 25,000 square feet on the same street. So operating out of about 120,000 square feet on one street, really one street that's actually 2 streets. So all that is going to be located to Norton. Next slide, please. Okay, this is by far the biggest thing we've done. It's 210,000 square feet. It involves corporate headquarters, all the distribution for 60 trucks. The project original investment is about $18,750,000. It's $17 million for construction and $1 million for personal property, making this easily way bigger than anything we've ever done before. Next slide, please. Okay, here are the people who are going to be working in your town because it's a little bit different. I started at Yale 50 years ago, cleaning light fixtures and sweeping floors. These people make on an average of marketing is going to be there, warehouse is going to be there, executive function is going to be there, maintenance is going to be there, the installers and drivers are going to emanate from there. The average salary is $70,000. That doesn't include any kind of profit share, which we have gotten over the last 4 years, and it doesn't include any NPS bonus. It doesn't include the insurance, which is we pay $12,000 and have the second best plan on our platform after Google. It doesn't include tuition reimbursement or any of those things. So if you blend that all in, it's more like 80. And I mentioned that again, and it doesn't include 401k. We match 401 up to 4.5%. I mentioned that because these are the people that are going to be in your town. And I said to Mike last time, I said, Leo and I tomorrow, I'm going to be in Stoughton. We're going to go to Deegs. And he owns a local diner in Stoughton. And we'll sit there, we'll have lunch and talk. And we usually go to lunch around 1:15, and there'll be 2 other tables of Yale people and 3 other people doing takeout just in that time that we're there. So these are the people, and nothing against Home Depot, Lowe's, or any other, because I just bought filters from Home Depot for my furnace the other day, so I'm not bashing them. Just a totally different type of person that's going to be in our warehouse, say, versus any of the others. They're going to have dispensable money to spend in your town. Next slide, please. We mentioned retail Restaurants, beauties. It's too bad we're not in Norton now because a lot of our suppliers are doing I call the apology tour. We've been short shipped so much that they're buying lunches for 20 to 30 to 50 people, almost daily now between all the manufacturers. And that has a nice impact on the town. But once again, our people spend money in the local areas. We were in Mansfield beforehand, and I think we single-handedly kept Cosi alive and Chipotle as well. But we're going to be prominent in your town. Next slide, please. Okay, community involvement. We serve our local communities. Whatever the charity in Norton is, we will be active. Now, to give you an idea, around here, we've been here in Dorchester forever. What's popular here is Pine Street Inn. I used to serve on their Abundant Table Board for a few years. Ace's Place, which is the Tufts. We're making it a mission to stop Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I used to serve on the board of Veterans Legal Fund because a lot of veterans get thrown out without legal representation. We still are heavy contributors there. Local food pantries last year, there was a big need for that. So we've kept a lot of the local food pantries in Framingham alive. I serve on the board of the Foundation for Metro West. I think our impact was 3 to 5 million in terms of distributions last year. And we set up a foundation, a 501(c)(3) through the company, not including what my sister and I give personally. So we will be active in your town, whatever it is. I mean, in Hanover, again, we were lucky enough to start like right before pandemic. But what was important in Hanover is foundation for was the Habitat for Humanity. Next slide, please. So we built a couple townhouses. So whatever that local thing is, we're the difference between, say, us and some of the other places that have recently gone to places. This is where we live. I'm not flying in from a private jet somewhere. I'm going to come in my car and be in your town, and things are going to be, and things are going to run properly, and we're going to do the right things because we're going to be here. When you're not going to call me, you'll have my cell phone number in case anything I say is, in case you need me for something. We're not headquartered somewhere else. We're going to be headquartered in your town. Next slide, please.
Okay, so I wanted to just do more or less a wrap up on this particular slide, the benefits to Norton. And again, this would really attract a family-owned business, which I know so many of your other family-owned businesses are very generous. They're very involved with the community. Again, attracting a company headquarters, a corporate headquarters. The company is trying to make some corporate real estate decisions as to where they locate. And their first choice is Norton, and they're hoping that it works out. This would also, as a result of putting a shovel in the ground for approximately 210,000 square feet, it would increase real estate taxes. It would also increase personal property taxes, increase permit fees. And I think really one compelling note also is the increase of vehicle excise taxes. The company owns all its vehicles. They have approximately 60 vehicles that would be registered to the town of Norton. And that is going to infuse additional revenue coming back into the town of Norton. So we thought it was quite noteworthy for some additional benefits to Norton. Obviously, it would increase meals taxes now that the pandemic is being lifted and everyone can get back to all these great restaurants. And again, we know that Norton adopted a meals tax several years ago. So it would, as Steve mentioned, they're spending lots of money, whether it's with restaurants, caterers and the like, and we all can't wait to get back to all that. So as you can see, it would be a very positive impact on the local businesses and community. So just wanted to spend a little bit of time on tax incentives. Again, the company is trying to make some corporate real estate decisions. Having a TIF would be very beneficial for the company. And this particular program, as you're very familiar with, the Massachusetts Economic Development Center program, I understand that you're going through the process, finalizing one of a very current TIF that needs to have state certification. But as you know, and the town has been very active. I believe there are approximately 15 TIFs that Norton has approved, and you can see all the great success that has come to the town of Norton with all these great businesses, whether it's El Nilam, again, New England Ice Cream, and many other companies that have participated. And And there are TIFs in the surrounding communities as well. It's a very strong program in Massachusetts, in the surrounding communities, whether it's Taunton, whether it's Mansfield, Foxborough, and many of the other communities. They recognize the value with helping companies to offset their project costs. So it's been a very successful tool, economic development tool, here in Massachusetts, and particularly in the Tri-Town communities, because the town doesn't lose a dime on the existing taxes. The town, as you know, you'll continue to collect the taxes on the land parcel. And so essentially, due to the increased value, as you know, of the assessed value, it will bring new tax revenue. So essentially, a TIF is a discount on future taxes. So the town, as you know, the town doesn't lose a dime. And you know very well what the program criteria is: job creation, private real estate investment, which equals bringing new tax revenue to the municipality. That's a requirement. There's a minimum, any TIF can be a minimum of 5 years, a maximum of 20 years. Any given year, a minimum exemption of 1% and the maximum of 100%. And so we do appreciate the support of Mike Units, Paul DiGiuseppe for coming to a mutual arrangement on this proposal. But I would like to reiterate, what Steve mentioned, that this is the largest expansion the company has ever undertaken. This is a privately held business. Every penny makes a difference, as Steve mentioned. And obviously the soaring increase of construction costs and the like, it's just the price tag has increased. And so this is a way for the company to offset its project costs. And again, we really appreciate all of the efforts so far. And we thank you for your consideration. On this next slide, Mike Units will give a high-level snapshot of what the potential TIF arrangement could be.
Hey, Mike, guess what?
Don't say it. This proposal from the company. So the first year would be 95%, the second year 90%, the third year 80%, fourth year 75%, then 70, 60, 2 years at 50, and 2 years at 45. So over the life of the 10 years, it's 66%. So the total tax savings to the company would be 1.3 million. And the incremental tax payment with the TIF to the town would be $943,801. And if I could, Steve, we had talked, because they have a number of vehicles, about vehicle traffic in town, and Steve had talked about how they control their conduct of their drivers. And I just wanted to see if Steve could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, there's a couple ways. First of all, you gotta hire a good person and pay them a fair wage. And that's the first thing, get a reasonable person. Our drivers have to pass quality checks, which means we check the criminal organization. So they're good people. But what we do is we have technology that whenever they speed, there's 3 phones that ring: mine, Leo's, and theirs, telling them to slow down. We also tie it into bonus. We have quarterly incentives. If there's too much speeding, or there's something, any instance at all, it goes against their possible incentive. And either they make it as a group or they don't. So if that one person decides that they want to speed more or less time, it hurts the whole group. So that's the first thing. It's hire a good person, technology, incentives. The second thing is when you look at, now hopefully we're going to be in your town, hopefully the residents will be our customers. But when you look at what we're doing is you take a right, you take a left, you go on 495. So I don't think there's much in the way of exposure in terms of being in the town and noise or whatever it is. And the second thing is, you can't hide. Our truck says one thing, Yale, in big blue letters. It doesn't say like, it's not a blank truck. It says Yale on it. And basically when I get a message that someone's speeding, it's like, dude, what are you doing? I mean, I know. Slow down, right? So, it's good citizenship, good people with just some enforcement and incentives, but I don't think you'll have a problem with trucks in our town. Do you want to segue into that?
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. I would say that we have the technology that, to add to Steve's point, that we actually have trackers on all of our vehicles. To Steve's point, anything from a box truck to a van to a Ford Transit to an Econo line, they all say Yale Appliance on it.
We have cars now, too.
And we do have vehicles for some of our employees. That being said, they all are branded with Yale, and we have technology in all of them, not only with tracking for speed, but we also have cameras, both-way cameras in and out. So God forbid something happens, we're able to sort of see the technology. We have it on our phones, we can see it real time. So again, we feel like we've invested a lot of time and money into the protection for not only our employees, but our customers as well. And that would turn into the town, into the people that live in the town. So thank you very much. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you. So obviously we have to work on the TIF agreement itself with all the language. I know the company is looking, came to the EDC first, as we usually do, to seek your support and move on to the Board of Selectmen eventually.
Thank you, guys. So why don't I open it up to questions to the folks on the EDC?
I have one. With regards to, so within the 210,000 square feet, it's meant to be corporate headquarters, 5% for the retail showroom and distribution operations. What percentage of the building would be used for distribution?
That would be approximately 190,000 square feet.
Less offices.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
less
already
offices.
including that.
Oh, that's right. 'Cause they're- okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I had a quick question on the chart showing the estimated increment of assessed value at 13.5 million roughly. I think an earlier slide said there was 17 million in construction costs. I'm just wondering where that assessed value is coming from.
If I may, I can respond to that. So there's a local assessor on our team who has calculated what the projected assessment would be. And as you know, assessments are mandated and dictated by the state to local assessors, how assessments are calculated. So it's actually based on the construction costs. The estimated 17,750,000 is the estimated hard construction costs. And so the assessors take a look at the comps, the income approach to value. There's a whole calculation and methodology of how they actually calculate what a projected assessed value would be, but it's based on the square footage and of course the construction costs. So we have shared that with the Norton assessor as well. So, and as you know, these are assumptions and projections are subject to change. Once the building is placed into service, of course, then the assessor would go out and place a value on them. But these are, best estimates based on the information at this time.
Thank you.
Mike, and Renee, can I just compliment a few additional comments too on behalf of the ownership to landlord?
Sure, go ahead, Jeff.
So obviously, this is the intention of what the park was designed for and made for. So it's not too often that we do get a corporate headquarters that does come down and wants to locate 100% of their operations. So that was similar to Horizon Beverage over in Norton Commerce Center. And we all know what a good citizens they've been as well. So on top of that, in our minds, the park was designed traffic-wise to exit 495 and use the lights. There's going to be construction jobs here that are obviously going to be extending and continuing. We probably project about 250 will be employed on the project. In addition to that, I'd say about a year and a half ago, this site was all farmland and assessed as farmland under the certain chapter that comes under. So as soon as we closed on the property, the tax base increased, and now we're looking to place the incremental assessed value on top. So I think all in all, together, a great company. I would really encourage anyone that's on the board to go down and tour their Hanover store and see how remarkable it is and how they did the fit up inside. And in addition to that, going through iterations of designs where we are today, even some of the designs inside the warehouse are changing somewhat. So we're enthused and encouraged to welcome them to Norton, and I think to be a great asset to the park overall at Blue Star.
Thanks, Jeff.
Can I ask Michael Units a question?
Okay.
On the chart in the purple band, it says estimated excise tax. Is that property or is that vehicle?
That would be vehicles.
Okay. What's the times 10? Oh, for the 10 years.
Yep.
Got it. Thank
And-
you.
Yep.
So it's $26,000 a year, Mike,
Yes.
for 60 cars? That was one of my questions too.
This is Lynn Tokarz. This is an estimated number right now. That number could change as well, but this is the number that is the most current information that we have from the company.
I had a question if there aren't any other questions from the EDC. Actually, I have a couple questions and then some comments. On one of the slides you had mentioned, it said that there are plans to lease the property short term and then consideration to purchase after a year of construction. What is the short term lease right now? What's the duration?
What Leo or Steve, if you could discuss that. And the lease is still under consideration, but what the proposed lease term would be. Leo,
Well, right now, Renee, I can chime in to assist with Yale as well, but right now it's a 12-year lease long-term. And in addition to that, there's 2 5-year options extending beyond that. So there's a commitment by them through a lease to stay and remain in Norton long-term. In addition to it, we provided them an option to purchase. They were pressuring us. They would like to buy and own their corporate headquarters.
Yeah.
So within the lease, they do have a right to purchase and acquire the facility.
Great. And then you also mentioned that Norton was the first choice. What are the other choices?
Well, I can let the company answer this, but yeah, they have looked all throughout Southeastern Mass. They would like to retain their employees, their valuable employees. And so they've looked throughout Massachusetts, again, from north to south, Route 24 belt and beyond.
Yeah, everyone always asks me that, why are we always looking kind of like this band, this like Taunton, Mansfield, Norton band? First of all, we used to be in Mansfield for years. And I love that park. And I like your town for the same reason, because there's trees and it's going to be a nice place for people to actually work. But to go North Shore would be a massive disruption to our current staff. Everybody seems to be located near or around your town. Providence, would be one. The Mansfield area, Fall River. Norton seems to be, that area seems to be where our people are. And quite honestly, I don't want to, I'm sure a lot of them will come, but some of them may be a burden with families. So I don't want to shuffle the deck any more than I have to, because it's really hard getting good people, and I like the place we are. So that's what we're considering. Kind of that Taunton, Mansfield, Norton corridor is kind of what would be the best for the company in terms of current staff.
And so back to the question, what are the other choices that you're considering, or how many?
Well, we've kind of zeroed in a little bit on this one for now. We've looked in Taunton before. We've looked in, where else? We've looked in Rentham. We've looked in Mansfield. We were in Mansfield, and those really are the towns that we're looking at. I mean, it's one of the real problems here is, like, everyone talks about Bitcoin, like it's what a huge investment it is, but it is really hard to find suitable warehousing. And I said that before because my sister asked, why do you want to do it now in this late stage of my career? And it's like, I have to do it. But we bought a 85,000 square foot warehouse for $2 million. In 2018, we bought another 25,000 square feet for 1.8. And for another, 15 million, we're getting 110,000 square feet. That's a hell of a change in a 10-year period. So finding good warehousing, and what I like about your town and this particular development is it feels good. It's a nice building. You walk in a building, it's a good building. It's got windows and light, and it looks good. It's not like a corrugated steel building. It's got some character to it. It's a nice place. And that's really why I prefer to be there, to be honest. And I didn't know Jeff was going to be in the call. I was going to talk up the fact that these guys know what they're doing, so there won't be construction delays and all the rest that goes with it. But they built a really nice product. We've done some research on them. I don't know. We've owned warehouses for a while. I've never seen a nice one, ever.
Steve, this isn't really relevant to the TIF, but do you guys have a conceptual drawing of what the building will look like from the outside?
Yes.
Is that something that you guys can share with us?
Sure. Now?
Yeah.
We don't,
Right on.
Jeff has it right now with us.
Jeff's on mute too.
If you let me share the screen, I can show it.
All right, let me stop.
So you see it on the screen?
Yes.
Oh, we did, yep.
All right, so here is the two-story element that's being designed and incorporated now. Similar design that you see at the remaining buildings at 4 and 5, but an immense amount of glass. First floor is where the retail store is located and that's where the kitchen setup and showcase of all the appliances and the various products. Second story is where corporate office is and functions, and then customer pickup here for someone or contractors that pick up their own products. And then the rest are where the van and truck doors are parked down the end of the building. So very similar looking in product, as you can see on the others.
So Jeff, as it sits, the dock area is in the front of the building, or is the entrance going to be like to the left?
The dock is to the right.
Yeah.
I'll give you another.
The store entrance is going to be at the corner, and the employee entrance is going to be right by that white door.
Correct. I can go down a set of plans. That's the side. Bear with me. Here's the proposed footprint originally, which is being modified. So you can see all the components going into here where the store and the office is going. And as of right now, Renee, this is even growing somewhat inside the footprint of the building.
Yes, that's right there. That has changed. Yeah.
Right, and here's the dock doors that are around the sides. And then sprinkler and electric room.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Open up for discussion amongst the EDC. Quiet group tonight, so I guess I can start. And just to note too, Denise Luciano has joined us. Denise, will touch base on the time that you came in because I didn't see it because the screen was being shared. So a couple things, and I can tell you, from my experience and feedback that I've heard from some of the residents, particularly after we just passed and approved the Home Depot TIF literally yesterday. And looking at those, one question that comes from folks is, and this came with Home Depot, like when's enough, right? Len, I know that you mentioned, and we're certainly well aware of the amount of TIFs that we have in the town. We're also very much aware of the opportunity to increase the tax base and trying to balance that. I think you guys will be wonderful partners. I can tell you my concern looking at the TIF, and this is something that Mike and I have discussed probably several times over the last couple of years, but the percentage is pretty high. I actually just compared it to the Home Depot TIF yesterday. And, the average for the Home Depot was at 50% or 50.5%, and this average here is 66. So it's a little bit higher from the tax incentive portion. The other difference, while I think overall the number of employees are higher, the net new is 10 on this and 25 on the other. But what really concerns me more is the starting point. 95% to me seems really high. Compared that to Home Depot, it's at 80%. And I know that there's been specific discussion about starting a TIF at that high level, and for this ending at 45 the last 2 years versus ending at a different percentage for others. So, when I look at this, I think it's quite high. I think that may be the feedback of others. I know there's been feedback about how many TIFs do we continue to engage with, and are we missing opportunities? Like I agree, we're not losing any existing tax, but we're also not building tax base, I think, as quickly with a TIF, right? So that's something that the town needs to consider. But I share that, like I said, I think that you guys will be great partners. I'd love, from my perspective, I'd love to work this out, but I also want to share concerns that have been brought to me, just over the past few weeks as a result of a previous negotiation. And I don't know if anyone else on the EDC has any comments or feedback to share.
I had a question. I mean, obviously this is, I'm new to this, but what iteration is this within the negotiation for this TIF? Because I agree, 95% seems like a high starting point.
Go ahead, Lynn.
If I may, when we met with the TIF team with Mike Units and Paul DiGiuseppe, we did share with them other TIF comps in the area, in the region. And so, many of the TIFs are starting with 100% exemption for several years, and longer TIFs, 15-year TIFs, 20-year TIFs, even with having, the potential lease at 12-year with options to renew. And, obviously the company was very interested with that, but they're also, they wanted to propose something that was very fair and very reasonable. And they wanted to make sure that the town was going to be generating new tax revenue every year. And so that's, more or less, they took a look at, many of the TIFs. And so, that's of course all public record. And we did share that with Mike and with Paul. And so some of the other compelling reasons for that is it's a very, substantial project cost. And this is, I know you mentioned, Home Depot and all that, but this is a family-owned business. And I can let, Steve speak to that in greater detail. This is a family-owned business. They want to bring their corporate headquarters. It's a very unique situation to attract that, again, that type of business, as Jeff O'Neill was indicating. They're going to be very involved with the community. As you can see, their history and involvement with education and other programs is very, very compelling. And they have the Yale Foundation, so they think locally, and they will be extremely engaged. But as far as this potential TIF proposal, again, they wanted to propose something fair and reasonable. It was negotiated down with all due respect to the TIF team, Mike and Paul. And this is something that the company felt that would be meaningful to them and to move forward. So we were very pleased that we came to this mutual arrangement. Steve, I don't know if you wanted to add.
Well,
Any-
I'm flattered to be compared to Home Depot in a lot of ways. I wish we were successful. But again, it's like I told Mike, there's three ways we're going to be successful. And I said, my family and everybody else, it's just something that we have to do. It's because we do need the space. What we weren't prepared to do, with COVID, and now we have to do more and more and more of our warehousing as our suppliers have less and less and less. I wasn't expecting this type of exposure, if you will. We project a certain amount of growth. COVID first, I'll be honest, killed us, and then it's been kind of like getting shipments and everything else. We need the space. It's that simple. There's three ways that we're going to be successful long term. If I don't do this, I have to do this somewhere. But obviously we need the sales, and I think for the next couple of years, just because people's projects have been delayed so much, that we'll be successful for a couple of years. It's interest rates, and we actually have a good relationship with the banks, so we have that under control. And whatever we can partner with the town is what's going to make it successful. I'm not writing a check for this. I wish I could, but I can't. So one of the things, especially in the first couple of years, it's going to be tough because this is the biggest thing we've ever done. And it's the biggest thing I probably at this late stage of my career will ever do. So that's the big unknown.
I got another question. Just I don't know if it's kind of off the point of the TIF, but obviously you mentioned all of the safety precautions and telematics and stuff that you have on your vehicles. All of your stuff is branded Yale, but obviously you'll be receiving, and so you have all of your suppliers shipping in. Do you have any safety precautions or safety procedures, risk management techniques, whatever, to manage the vendors and your suppliers that are coming in? Because they're, just looking at chatter within, the Norton neighbors, there's always concern around truck drivers, bombing down roads. And if it doesn't say Yale on it, they don't know necessarily who it's going to. And I know the facility itself is very conveniently located right off of 495. It's the whole reason it was built. And I get that, but there are back ways into that. And is there going to be any direction given to those suppliers and anybody else not to use those back roads and to come out and, make the right, make the left, and go to 495 as opposed to going back roads?
We don't foresee them doing, most of these guys have routing software, and they're going to use the interstate roads. I don't foresee them going through the town, to be honest. I foresee us going through the town, hopefully to deliver stuff to your neighbors. But I don't see them doing anything more than 495 left, right. As far as we always vet our suppliers, and one day we hope to get our own kind of like vehicles, mostly just for supply. I think the people that do it are good enough. They get paid enough to do it, but we need more consistency as far as, getting shipments. I think Leo can talk more to that.
Yeah, to add on to that, so today where we are located, we're between two exits, and there is a lot of sort of back roads. We actually dictate to our suppliers of how to get to us. So we would do this. We would do the same. We do have a sort of a software and sort of contracts with all of our suppliers. We probably get anywhere between only, compared to others, 5 to 7 deliveries on a day. So, and they're usually all done between a 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. time frame. So again, for the larger, it's not like we're having 50 trailers per day coming into our warehouse.
And just to follow up with that, Steve and Leo, it's my understanding that the town of Stoughton has never had a complaint.
Never, not one.
No,
Not one.
it's funny you should mention it because, if you get off the wrong exit, you find yourself on like a residential street, but I've never seen one of our vehicles on that street ever. Funny you should say that.
Yeah. In 11 years, we've never had a complaint. No.
Are you on their local social media?
Am I?
Why?
Well, actually, we are on local social media in Boston. I think Wellesley. We'll be in the Norton. I'm not sure if we are in Stoughton.
Renee, our neighbors have had a lot of complaints, and I just won't say who they are, but and I don't even have to be on social media to see those, but I know that for a fact. But again, not that we know of.
We have people looking at social media in the marketing department all the time. Certainly on Twitter and on Facebook.
Yeah.
I haven't. Yeah, Google. We answer. If customers have an issue, we have an app where it's a thumbs up, thumbs down. A thumbs down triggers a phone call for 10 managers within 10 minutes. So I don't think you're going to have any. To your point, Cody, I don't think there'll be any problems with the neighbors, especially when we're so close to the highway.
That would obviously be the hope. I just know, that you don't necessarily have control over the suppliers and which way they're coming. Because if they're coming from, Bridgewater, maybe they're coming down and turning down, what is it, Bay?
Yep.
Bay Road.
Yeah, but we have full trucks. They're not. These people coming from North Carolina, New Jersey, New York.
Okay.
We have full trailers, so they're not going to stop like at dealer X, like in Mansfield, and then come through your town to go. They're going to go on the highway because these are full trucks. There's no place for them to go other than our place.
For Mike Units, to that point, I know maybe 2 board meetings ago, maybe 3, we talked about specifically the Blue Star area and the traffic and signage and things like that. Maybe it's worth getting it on an agenda so that can be discussed with Jeff, to do what we can before we have any issues, as opposed to responding when we do have them.
All right, if I can I share the screen again?
Sure, Jeff, go ahead.
So obviously this roadway, this is the phase 2 roadway. It has not been constructed yet. This entrance here that's designed in that corner does not allow really a left turn. Sorry, I'm zooming in. Does not allow a left turn to continue up Leonard. So everything has to go right out towards Route 123 and traffic signal that's here. As you leave buildings 4 and 5, and as you leave buildings 1 and 2, there are signs here directing traffic to 495, signs here directing traffic to 495. It will be the same across from building 7 and the same across from the phase 2 roadway in this location. And then as it relates to traffic getting out, in and out, there's a signal here and obviously signals at both ramps on both sides of the highway. So you can't get a better location design-wise to control traffic and get it to the highway as fast as possible.
And Jeff, what do you mean that they can't turn left on Leonard?
This, if I'm gonna have to zoom in again, hang on. So this is a sweeping turn. You see this sweeping radius that's coming up here?
Mhm.
That's going in that whole location. That allows the traffic to come in and go up, but does not allow any sort of truck vehicle to take a left turn and continue down Leonard. All the trucks have to exit and go up Leonard towards Route 123.
Yep, and again, I don't think that this next comment is your issue. Going back to Cody's point, somebody coming to the facility and coming down Bay is going to end up on, what is that, Plain Street and Leonard.
Yeah.
Well, I
So-
think,
I don't think it's your issue, Jeff. I think that's why I said to Mike, like, let's have a discussion so that we can figure out what if anything, signage we can put in that area. Right, before somebody would make a right-hand turn off of Bay Road, rather than continuing on, getting on 495 and going up to the next exit.
right, and I think that one of the good things with Yale being here, if you took a look at their suppliers, I don't know, there's 10 or 12 suppliers that they're buying from. So they can control a lot of the traffic and the directions from those vendors where they're purchasing from. You know, it's not like you're coming into a facility here that's got 10,000 SKUs of all different products coming from all over the country. So it's Miele, it's Whirlpool, it's who those vendors are.
Great, thank you. So Mike, talk about timing. We have, is the expectation to have something agreed upon to be presented at the October town meeting?
Well, I know definitely by October, but I know that they were hoping for, and it's something the selectmen would have to discuss with them. They were hoping to have a meeting before October, but obviously that's something the board would have to talk about.
Okay, so then what's timing?
Lynn can talk on that.
Well, yes, to follow up with that, the company would have an interest due to they're trying to make some corporate real estate decisions to, if the select board was so inclined, to schedule a special town meeting. Because what the intent is that the look forward date for this project to be complete and secured, should the incentives be approved, would be, we need to have it certified by the state in September. And so the look back would be to, and of course, we need to have all documents forwarded to the state in August. So that means that a potential special town meeting in, early July or mid-July could meet that time frame in order for this project potentially to turn into a reality here in the town of Norton. So that's what the company is, proposing. And so we hope that that would be considered.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. So Mike, kind of going back to what you alluded to earlier in the discussion, one of the things that we expect is to see some language. I would prefer that the EDC see that before we go into any vote. I think that, we've done a lot of back and forth at the last minute. This certainly sounds like it can very quickly get to the last minute. So if that can be something that's prepared and provided for us to review and potentially vote on at our next meeting, I think that would be good. And our next meeting, I think, is this June 2nd.
Okay.
I don't know if that timing works. If not, it would be 2 weeks after.
Yep. No, that's good.
Okay.
That works on our end, and we could potentially
And
draft TIF agreement for you, and we'll send it well in advance of that time.
okay. And Lynn, just for your knowledge, I don't know if you've talked to Mike and Paul about this, but we typically the EDC and the select board meet on opposite weeks. So there's not that much of a delay from one meeting to the next.
Thank you.
I could just offer one piece that sort of piggybacks a little bit on some of Renee's comments. And this is more of things to just keep in mind. I know Yale Appliance. I know it's got a great reputation. It's a great name. I have no doubt that they would be a great corporate partner. I also think the Condine Blue Star Park is a very convenient and desirable location. I would ask Yale and Lynn to keep in mind that at our Springtown meeting, we've just asked residents to approve not only a TIF for another company, but as well as a very, very large debt exclusion. And I, understanding that you are going to need town meeting approval, and I would ask you to keep in mind that it may be more palatable if this was a more equitable split along the lines of Home Depot's. And that was also the reason I asked about the percentage of distribution, because I believe Mr. Units had indicated at the time when we were discussing theirs in particular, why it wasn't as high as 90, 95, or 100%. And there was a desire to keep buildings that were for distribution below that threshold. So that was just something to keep in mind, knowing that you were going to need town approval. It is going to be a special.
Yes.
If it is going to be a special, it is going to have all of the scrutiny.
Thank you. Thank you. That's understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other comments? Okay, well, Lynn and Stephen Leo, thank you so much. And Jeff, thank you so much for sharing the information with us and being interested in Norton. And certainly when the other information is available, we'll get it out to the EDC and make sure that we address it, as quickly as we can so that we can move it through the process.
Thank you so much.
We thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
take care.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys. The next item is the town property update. So Mike, I saw Catherine online. I think that you might be having her talk to this. And I think I may have seen when I was logging into this session that you may have sent an update. Did you send an update to me or to the entire group?
To you, Catherine updated her list, taking out the conservation properties. So
Okay.
that's what that second list is. It just has the conservation properties out.
Okay. And Catherine, is that what you're going to be sharing with us?
Well, I sent the list. I didn't know exactly what you wanted me to share as far as the town-owned properties. There's a lot of properties on the list that are just little teeny little pieces of land that are, some of them are landlocked and I don't know if you're looking for land that you want the town to sell or looking for land that you have something in mind to put there. I just wasn't clear on what you were looking for.
So I think it's a couple things. I'm sorry, Mike, did you want to add to that?
I can share her list if you want. Just let
Sure.
you know.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, that's fine. And I think it was a couple things, and I know Sandy initially brought this up, so I'll ask Sandy to supplement my memory here. But Catherine, it's a couple things. We had questions on just generally, what do we do with these pieces of land that we have? We also, from an economic development perspective, of course, we want to understand, are there potential future opportunities for some growth? Not specific to any sort of business or industry, but do we have kind of like any gems out there that are along some of the commercial or industrial areas that we as a group could say, hey, this is available? Because we've had a lot of questions from people on, well, where can we go, right? And where can we go where it's not a wetlands or they have a specific need, for some infrastructure. So really the conversation, parts of it was centered around, what do we have? What are we sitting on? What can we potentially, offer up? We thought we could sell them initially, and then Mike informed us that that's just not the process. But what's available for other businesses that we would be able to kind of market, I guess. And Sandy and team, I'll ask you to add on to that. as needed.
Well,
Yeah, so I think we were at the last last time we talked about this had some questions, and I know Mike had said that Catherine, you had been working on some possible some possible properties that were taken for tax purposes to put up for auction, and we're just kind of looking for more information, I guess, on that to see if there's any opportunities for economic development.
Right, there's to do the auction is very costly. So a few years ago, we had quite a few pieces of property, and we knew that TPC was very interested in one of them. So it was a very advantageous and lucrative auction. Since then, I've tried to look through the list, and there's all these like little pieces of land. I did foreclose on one house last year that would probably be a good sale. We could probably, especially with the market right now, make a good amount of money on it. But to just sell one property would be not cost effective. So I had a second property that I was supposed to foreclose on last year, but COVID hit, and the tenants or the people are still in the house. So my attorney and I are trying to get them out of the house, so then we can foreclose. It will make it a lot easier, but that keeps getting delayed. So it's just a very frustrating part of my job, is trying to see what can I sell and how can I go about it to cost the town the least amount of money so that we can make the most amount of money. A few years ago, Bob Kimball, when he was still on the select board, was helping me with figuring out which properties were worthwhile. And since he's no longer on the select board, I haven't been able to utilize his expertise. And then when COVID hit, that kind of shut everything down. So he was a really good source. He knows where a lot of these properties are and did a lot of research. Actually, he's the one who discovered that quite a few properties that were on my list were in fact conservation properties. So what I did over the last few days is I've got rid of all of the properties that were conservation. I'm going to have to work with the town accountant to get those into the right account now. But I took those off so that now when we look at this list, this is a pretty good list of what we own, and you can look at them, and they're just little slivers of land. You would probably, if anyone's interested, you could just go to the assessor's website and look in the maps, and that way you could actually put the map and lot in and see where these pieces of property really are. And some of them are wetlands. I think one of them has a note that I think Jen put on the spreadsheet for me that says swamp or something. So it's kind of hard when you just look at these, because, you know, North Lakeview Road, Norton Grove, I mean, there's not like many that have an actual address, and even some of them that do, it's a paper street, so it's not even an actual address.
Is there, I don't see it on here. Is there, like, how do we tell what the square footage is without having to pull these up?
You'd have to pull them up. There's no way to put all that information on the spreadsheet. I mean, we could, but it would take a long time to update it.
Mm-hmm.
I inherited this spreadsheet. I've basically just added a few properties and then taken the ones off that I sold, and now most recently taken off the properties that were really conservation. There's a few notes on here too for ones that Bob Kimball was working with some veterans organization that was potentially might be good for the, building a veterans home. I don't even know where that is in the planning process at the moment.
Is that information on here?
Yeah, I think it's highlighted in yellow or orange on one of the pages.
Mike, can you scroll through?
It's one of them is parcel 1857, which is off Plain Street.
Yeah, let me.
Yeah, they're in numerical order. There you go. So there's one. And these again were highlighted, you know, Bob Kimball and I were working on this a couple years ago. And so he had gone through and highlighted many of these.
So what's column E?
Column E.
And F. Mike, can you scroll back up? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
A, B, C, D, E.
that was my question for
Yeah,
Catherine.
you know, the only thing I can think of is way back when these spreadsheets go back to the early 2000s, way before my time. And that may have been what either the value of the land was at the time, or I'm not even sure. I can't even give it. The value column is where I put what the amount of taxes that were delinquent. So like if I foreclose on a property and the balance on my books is say $10,000, that's what I put in the value column. Some of them don't even have a value in the value column. So I'm not sure. I mean, some of them from the 70s. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know where, I can't even give you a guess on some of these.
Could it be the book value that's carried by the town, the value of the property as an asset for accounting?
Yeah, but we're not, when James and I reconcile each year, we're using the value column, which is column F. So I'm not even sure what purpose column E is, to tell you the truth. Again, I just inherited this spreadsheet and have just been maintaining it. So.
So we don't really have type, square footage, potential
No.
value.
No, and some of these properties, in order to auction them, I need to actually go back and find the documents of the foreclosure. And some of them, they're so old, I can't even find files on them anymore that show when the town actually took them originally. Because the recorded date, I'm not sure if that's the taking date or what date that is. I know that the foreclosure date is when the town acquired it, but the date before that, I'm not sure. Like,
That would be
although-
the date when it would be recorded with the state.
yeah.
So when you close escrow, you're closed, but you're not technically closed until the title is filed.
Well, that would be when, all right, recorded with the land
So
court then.
Right, so that
Yeah,
would be the,
land court.
the following date.
Yeah.
Except some of them are actually earlier.
Are
Yeah,
they?
I know, that's strange. That's why,
Yeah. I don't know that that's, I'm looking at,
yeah.
Row 9, right?
Yeah.
The recorded date is a month before the recorded
I
or
was,
the foreclosed.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. This, and who knows that, sometimes in the conversions as that, Excel updates itself if some of the dates got corrupted. I'm not sure.
Catherine, you mentioned that there's a high cost for the auction, so I'm assuming that you look to bundle properties together to make it worth your while. What is the rough estimate of what the cost of an auction is?
Well, the last auction we did cost between, it was somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000. Which is a chunk of my budget. So that's why too, I have to make sure I have enough money left over for that. And this year, I was trying to see if I could get something done before the end of the fiscal year, but it's just been very difficult.
How many properties are on this list?
I don't know. I guess we could scroll and see if we can count them.
Like 325.
Well, you got the
Oh,
row
let's
number
see,
there.
100 and, yeah, he's still going there.
201 or 202
Yeah.
looks like.
Oh, two.
Yeah.
The one
Most
we
of
were
the,
sent has 325, so I'm assuming the one we're looking at is excluding probably conservation, maybe?
yeah, she said.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Catherine, most of these residential, it seems.
Yeah, they are. I don't think any of them are maybe a very small portion are businesses. Plus, this is just the properties that the town has foreclosed on. I also have a drawer full of properties that people haven't paid taxes in years, and the cost to foreclose on them is high and not worth it a lot of times.
Mhm.
So by looking at this, there may be potentials where there are properties grouped together. Like
Yes.
I'm specifically looking at like rows 158 and 159, where it's off Woodward Street, but it has, I think that B was lot, right? And it has like 90 or 9, I'm reading wrong now, like 93 and 94.
Yeah, it's map and parcel.
Right.
Do either you, Catherine, or Paul have tools where like we can actually plot these out, all of them?
At the same time, you mean?
Yes.
No, you'd have to go one by one. I don't know. Paul, can you answer to that? I don't think we have anything to do it any other way.
If you
Right.
coded them
We-
somehow on GIS?
Well, we don't have, we actually don't maintain GIS. Although it could be a request we make of Serpid. They're the ones who actually manage some of our GIS data.
Because I think it would be beneficial to see like this plotted out, right?
You mean like, see like the map of Norton and all the ones that are
Yeah.
town owned?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's way beyond my expertise. When I'm doing a tax taking, I go onto the assessor's database and pull each one up one at a time. I don't know any other way to do it.
Yeah,
And I do like the GIS because then I can actually zoom in and see the neighborhood and see what's beside it and if the people who owns next door. That's one tool you can use, but still you need to go map by parcel.
Yeah, I did with the vacant land, non-town owned, private owned vacant land. I have a spreadsheet and just using the parcel info, I hyperlink it. So if you see a property, you can click on it and go to it. It doesn't really do, Renee, what you're asking. It kind of does, but it just does it one property at a time, but it's
Right.
on a spreadsheet and you could click it and go to it.
I mean, there may be ways just to sort to kind of help it out, but Paul, is that something like, do we have time with Serpid that we could ask?
I'll ask them. They're, wrapping up on the master plan. I mean, that may be that's a different thing altogether, but I can ask them. I'll ask Grant King.
And Paul, maybe if we could check Map Geo and see if we could at least do some layer to color lots that have been taken.
That's a good idea.
That would be nice. Then we could just add and take away as needed
Yeah,
and turn it on.
Well, that's too where, Mike, you found, wasn't it a couple weeks ago, you told me one of the properties on my list was where one of the water stations is or something?
sewer pump station.
Yeah, sewer pump station. I'm gonna foreclose on that. I'm gonna sell that one.
Is the only way to sell these by auction?
Yes, public auction.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
So you couldn't just go to the neighbor and say, hey, you want another quarter of an acre?
Yeah.
No,
I do get calls from people all the time wanting to know if they can buy the lot next to them. When it's still in my tax title process, before I've actually foreclosed, what I say to them is, well, here's who owns it. See if you can work a deal with them. Because then the town would get paid and it'd be back on the tax rolls. But once we foreclose on it, the only way to sell it off per se is at a public auction.
And public auctions, usually you've got a list of a bunch of them that you're doing so that you're getting efficiency on the auction. What does it cost to run the auction?
That's what costs between $10,000 and $15,000. I mean, there are auctions where you can hire an auctioneer who gets paid by the buyer of the lot. But those people have been paying, the treasurers have been paying more for the auction because it's more advantageous to pay it, and then you get a better turnout. So there's a couple ways to do it though.
So Catherine, maybe I'm not understanding the financials, but 10 to 15,000 doesn't seem like it's a hard lift if you're auctioning off even a couple of properties, right? Or am I not understanding how we make the money off of it?
Well, because that has to come out of my budget. That doesn't come off of what we make. So I have to have that $10,000 or $15,000 in my budget to have the auction.
So is it because the money for the auction comes from your budget, but the money from the auction that we receive goes into what, general funds?
It goes into free cash.
So Catherine, what do we, if we were to look at this, like column F that you have, like the amount that we take it for, is that where the auction starts? So say row 145, the bottom leaf, Fred and Alan Riley at 43 Maple, we have $15,228. Like, would you, is it typical to say that, well, the auction would start at 15,000, or is that not even an indicator?
Usually we try to get at least what we have it on the books at, if not more. But there were a couple properties at the last auction that we just wanted to get back on the tax rolls that I did accept less than what I had foreclosed it as.
Mhm.
So, but that's just, these numbers in column F, I believe, to the best of my knowledge, that's how I track it, is what was owed at the time of taking or foreclosure, actually.
We actually foreclosed on like properties for $50.
Yeah. Well, because that was probably, oh no, that was I was gonna say that was probably the 70s, but that one was the 90s. Yeah.
Is there any associated budget that goes towards maintenance on these properties?
No.
Are there any buildings or homes on any of these lots?
Most of them, no. There is the one on I think it's 16 Ridge that we had boarded up, but there is a building on that property. The couple other buildings that I did have were auctioned off at my last auction. That would have been 19 King Philip was one of them, that, and one other property. I don't remember which one it was.
So most of these are just land?
Yes. Most of them are land, so.
So if I'm going to throw this out to the EDC, in a perfect world, if we wanted to see additional information on this outside of the zoning, I wrote down buildings, but it sounds like we would need to determine if the building's on there in size. What are other attributes that we would want to know about these properties?
Wetlands.
The other, oh, actually, I guess it's do we know, I know we talked about the one piece of land by Maple, that's the land itself is contaminated. Do we know if we have any other parcels that are like that are issues like that?
I do not. Do you, Mike?
I don't, other than that property.
And the other kind of question along with that is there any safeguards that we can take as a town before we take a property for non-payment taxes to make sure that it doesn't have issues like that?
Well, it's kind of hard to know. I usually won't foreclose on a property until I've contacted one of the other departments, whether it be the Board of Health or Conservation, to do a little research on it, except unless it's like a house and I know it's just somebody just hasn't paid. It's kind of a lot of responsibility to put on me as the treasurer to have to know every property in the town and what's okay to foreclose on. It's just hard to know that.
And Catherine, how many I'm sorry, Sandy.
I was just going to say, it sounds like you do, you check with the others. So that's a good checks and balances piece that you're doing.
And Catherine, how many properties did you say that you have, like, kind of at the near last step before you foreclose right now?
I have one for certain, and there's a couple others that I'm working with my attorney on. I'm hoping that the people are just going to pay. I try to work with people. When I get my attorney involved, I want them to just pay. I don't want to foreclose on it. But this one in particular property, I can't say who it is, has been an issue since 2012, prior to me even taking over as treasurer. So it's been a long time coming, and now I just need to get them out so we can foreclose on it.
Gotcha. So back to the group here. Does anyone want to try to look at this, take a stab at divvying it up and seeing what we can do on getting some of the other information?
Yeah, I was going to ask, is the Excel document like is it on an online portal or shareable or Google Docs or something like that. I know there's probably some confidentiality stuff that you might be worried about, but if there was, I could start, you know, in my free time, start filling some of this stuff in, see if, because the first piece is finding out how big it is and whether or not it's worthwhile. Especially some of the adjoining lots where you've got like all the map 32, parcel 90 through 94.
Right.
Those all appear to be right next to each other. And if you could, you know, bundle those in an auction, they're going to be worth more together.
Yeah, this document isn't confidential. It's all pretty much public information, so we can send that out to you. I think Mike has everybody's email address. He could forward it, the most
Yeah,
recent one, to you.
I do have it. He sent it to me before the meeting,
Oh, okay.
Catherine.
Great.
Cody, what I can do is I can stick it up. Were you able to get into the Dropbox?
Did you send me the Dropbox? I didn't see an email from you.
It didn't send, I did somewhere around 1:30, 2 o'clock today.
To my Gmail?
Yeah. Did you guys get a link? Well, I know, Laura, I saw that you accessed it.
I got nothing.
Did you guys get it? I don't know how it comes through. Did you get a separate link? Or was it the link in my email?
For the Dropbox,
Yeah. You didn't get anything?
You know what?
I got an
I'm sorry.
invite.
Yes.
I did. My email, I'd searched for something. It wasn't showing up all the new stuff yet.
I
So,
can
yeah,
do,
that's-
I can put it up there. And then I believe that I can create another folder. I have to create it to provide edit permissions, but I can do that tonight. If that would be helpful. I keep trying to move the screen, but it's I'm not the one sharing.
Yeah, any help you guys want to give me on this would be greatly appreciated. As you can see, it's a pretty big list. And I'm very thankful to Jen Carlino, who went through it and actually isolated some more conservation land that I didn't even have listed as conservation, so.
And I'll check with Denise to see if Map Geo can add a layer for this.
Okay. And then something I guess too that we don't have on here is address, right? It'd be nice, like, would most of these, if we put in that the map information, would it pop up an actual address as opposed to saying off Woodward Street?
A lot of them do not have addresses because they're little pieces of land.
Okay.
That is their address. What it says on the screen is what their address is in the assessor's database.
And the assessor's database is linked to the parcel list?
Yes, so if you go under the assessor's database and type in the parcel ID, that is the address that should pop up unless something's been changed, but it shouldn't. This should be the right address.
Okay. Is there anything else, Catherine, that we could do to assist? Any other data points that would be helpful or information or like recommendations, like to Cody's point, like if we see something where it looks like, hey, we can group these together?
Yeah, that would be good information. Sometimes the attorney for the auction doesn't want you to group them together, but sometimes you can. It depends on where the properties are.
Okay.
Another point I wanted to ask, before you go into foreclosure, is there anything that we can do to work with some outside party to say, you know, I don't know, a developer or somebody just to say, here, you could sell this to somebody, like you say, you try and work with the neighbors when they ask about a piece of land that may be delinquent. Is there any effort or is there any way for us to work with an outside party to say, buy this before it goes into foreclosure?
There really isn't, because they would have to buy it from the owner. They couldn't buy it from us. So it's kind of similar to when people call and ask about a property, I tell them to contact the owner. That's the only way.
And we're not allowed to give out the who's delinquent on their taxes information.
No, that information we can give out. I do not give out if they don't live on the property, I don't give that information out. I'll tell them who owns it. That's public
Okay.
information.
Okay.
I mean, anyone can go to the registry of deeds and look up any property and see who actually owns it. But as far as what their mailing address is, that I will not give out, but I will tell them who owns it.
Is there a registry of the delinquent taxes, like who's in risk of being foreclosed on?
There's no registry, but it is recorded at the registry of deeds. The tax taking would be recorded there. And if there's no redemption recorded, meaning that they've paid it, then it would still be ripe for foreclosure.
Okay. I'm just trying to think if there's any way that we could forego the whole foreclosure process. Because it's easier, like you said, it's easier to get it sold before we have to auction it. So
Right.
if there's a way that we could get it out of our hands or before it's ever in our hands, then that would be the ideal route.
Well, there are companies out there that would buy your tax liens. I just don't trust them because then I've heard that the properties wind up back in tax title again because then they don't pay the company. So, I mean, there is that. It's just, that's not as nice to the owners of those who are maybe trying to pay, because typically they would come in and you'd have to pretty much sell off your whole tax taking list. So even the ones I'm working with now.
Gotcha.
I have quite a few who are on payment agreements with me right now, and most of them do pretty good. I do have a few that are probably going to get turned over to the attorney just to kind of like push them a little harder.
Catherine, do you budget annually for an auction, or do you typically not have it in your budget?
It depends on how much is left in my budget, because the budget covers all of my costs throughout the year for everything that relates to tax taking. So all my attorney fees, the actual recordings of the tax takings, the redemptions. The last 2 years, I haven't spent my budget basically because of COVID, haven't been able to do what I wanted to do, so.
Mike, is this something with a potential special town meeting in front of us that we could allocate money specifically to hold an auction?
Well, what do you have in your budget now, Kathy? Tax title.
For next year, you put it down to 30,000, I believe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's enough money in the budget right this minute to hold an auction, but there wouldn't be able to do an auction and do my tax taking for next year.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, this is something we could put money in if we had an idea from the tax title attorney that it was something we could move forward on.
Plus, you also want to make sure you're going to make enough money before you do it too. So if you might find a lot of these properties aren't even worth what we took them for.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that one is worth $57.82. Not saying somebody would buy it, but I think that's the other thing too. Like I was writing down, like, when you said about considerations, like we group things together, but also if we believe that there was some sort of usability for it, right? Because it might, to your point, come right off the list if it's too small or landlocked or something like that. But I mean, I guess that's a balance. If you're saying like $10,000 to $15,000 to hold an auction, to try to get rid of some of these properties, I don't know. I have to imagine with this long list and the fact that you haven't had an opportunity to do this for a couple of years, that there is the potential to make more money, but I'm not as familiar with.
Yeah.
Like, looking at this, it's somewhat Greek to me.
Right, and I think the reason too, it only cost 10 to 15,000 last time was because I did a lot of the legwork instead of having the attorney do a lot of it. I sent out the letters and all of the documents that are required by law to send to people who want to bid. If the attorney had done it, it probably would have been a lot more money.
So what would your method of execution be this time?
To try to do as much myself again, as long as I'm here, because Renee, my days are numbered. Oh,
I hope-
maybe she doesn't know my days are numbered.
I don't know, but I see Mike with is there an announcement that we should know about, Mike?
He's on mute.
He's
We'll leave him on
muted,
mute.
yeah. So that means it doesn't count. No, you're still on mute, Mike. You took yourself
Well,
off
he
and put
was-
yourself back on.
June, July, August, well, about 3 more months.
No, say it isn't so.
It is. I'm retiring to move closer to my grandchildren.
Oh, that's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats.
So,
Well,
thanks. But I'll be
I-
sticking around as long as I can. My retirement potential date is September 10th right now. So it's going to be hard to replace me though, Renee. You know
oh,
that.
I do know that. Yeah. So that means, Cody, you have a task in front of you that has more urgency to it now.
I
So-
will. I missed. I
Welcome,
missed the.
Cody.
I was gonna say I missed the welcome aboard, but I love it. Thank you, Cody.
we got to milk the people, the new people, as long as we can before they catch on to it, right?
Right.
So Catherine, I guess I'd ask you just to have, I mean, I don't know if you would know this, like, is the cost directly impacted by the number of properties you would look to auction?
It goes by the time it takes the attorneys to get all the information, because they do like not a deep title search, but they make sure that all the title paperwork is ordered, that when we took it, it was proper. And then it's the advertising that we're having it, and then the actual auction. They actually perform it. Mansfield's having theirs today, or just had theirs. It's probably finished up by now, using the same attorney that I use. So maybe I'll reach out to them and see what it costs them.
Okay, I mean, it would be good just to have an idea. And then it sounds like the more properties that we identify as having better potential, then the more costly it could be. Right.
And yeah, because once we sell the properties, they take care of all the deeds and like a closing. It's not a real, like a big closing. It's basically they sign a paper and it's theirs. So as well
Don't we all
as long
wish
as we
we
get
had
the money.
Don't we all wish we had closings where we just signed one paper?
I know. Well, they sign 3 papers. One's the deed. I forgot. And there were 2 other ones last time where they had to promise to do something. I can't remember what it was.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions?
What details would it be important to capture under this, other than the size of the lot, so that we can map them properly and have an idea of where, what we're looking at?
So I wrote down the zoning, the current zoning. You said the size. Laura and Sandy mentioned wetlands. I would say a verification of the address. And then I had the other items as considerations and potential usability. Does that sound like everything we talked about?
Yeah, that's all I remember. I'm trying to think I don't know what the geo mapping, who runs that or what software we'd be looking at. I know just running through the zoning board process myself, trying to find a map of the various plots. I don't know if, the Google drawn lots are good enough.
So we have a GIS site, Cody. I can send you the link, and then I can touch base with you offline on how to use it.
Okay, that'd be good.
I was gonna say, Cody, if you wanted to split this up too, I'd be happy to work with you on it. So there's a lot of properties here, so if you.
Yeah, I mean, it goes pretty quick. I'm just trying to figure out. I mean, obviously, some of it's not going to be on there, but it's going through a couple of different systems on the assessors for the size, the zoning board for the zone, and the address may not be even applicable, as was mentioned. So, yeah, if you want to.
Paul, when he looks it up by the lot number, all that information should be on there, right?
Yeah.
The
Yes,
size
they-
of the lot, the zoning. Yeah, you'll just have to put the layers on, Cody.
Right, when you go into map geo, you would just put in the search function, you would put the map number, which is column A, and then the lot number, which is column B.
Okay.
It would be map number underscore lot number. And that'll take you to it. I don't know that there's a quicker way, but once you're there, like if you were looking at Maple Street, you know, there's a couple here at lines 141 and 42 that you should be able to see both of them. Or there's a few more underneath it too, so.
Yeah.
There's a zoning layer and a wetlands layer.
Yeah. Yeah, there's aerials, you can spend a little bit of time on it. But one thing, Cody, with the wetland layer, those are just estimates. Those are not actual surveyed, so, but it still gives you a good sense of what's there.
Gotcha.
And, you know, the other thing you want to, you know, a lot of these properties just don't front any street. I mean, I don't know this off Woodward, but that's telling me these are lots that aren't connected to a street. So, you know, I think we're going to be, you know, we're going to find a needle in a haystack to find a property that is probably not only developable, but marketable. I mean, these have been sitting here for years, a lot of them.
Right.
I'm guessing a lot of them are just, you know, they're just different challenges on these sites.
Right.
Appreciate your positivity there, Paul.
Well, I mean, you know, this is a legacy going back a couple hundred years in Norton, where we just created a lot of, you know, we subdivided a lot of property in ways that you can't develop them. You know, and we didn't require roads to get pushed through, and subdivisions were approved. So they, you know, and Sandy, you know, because your neighborhood just went through this. We put cul-de-sacs in and dead ends, and the properties right next to them can't access them. And that's something that there's a drawback when you do that. That means other properties can't develop when they don't have access to roads. And I think a lot of these will have that. A lot of these are going to be wet, you know.
Can we turn any of these into like open space? Like if we do see something, to your point, Paul, that doesn't have great access, like Catherine, I don't know what our opportunities are, right? Like right now, are they considered town owned?
Yes.
So if we had like a group of them together that would make like a nice little outdoor picnic area or whatever, would that be an option for us?
Yes, you as the select board can take the land and do what you want with it, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right, Mike?
I would think you still have the access issue, but you could always, you know, pay someone for an easement, right?
Yeah, in answer to Kathy's question, yeah, the select board would have to go to town meeting and have them put into the selectman's name, I believe, in the town's name, I believe, under the control of the select board. And then there may be some that may abut conservation land that those would be put in to conservation. And if it was something that you needed an easement, you could look at that.
So it might not all be a lost cause.
I don't think Attleboro landfill is going to be very marketable.
That one always bothered me. I looked it up once. I can't remember where it was, but I mean, it's on Dean Street, but yeah, that one always bothered me when I went through the list.
Okay.
Do we know, was it ever used?
Is it part of the Attleboro landfill? The old Attleboro landfill? Well,
Maybe,
I'll have
and
to
you know what? That one doesn't even have dates, so who knows? Gee.
Okay.
Please
Yeah.
just don't tell me it's another contaminated area.
Does
I
Dean
hope
Street
not.
even abut Attleboro? Dean Street doesn't run into Attleboro, does it?
Well, it could have just been, which is probably a scarier thought. It could have just been owned by the guy that owned the Attleboro landfill, and hopefully he wasn't dumping there too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it can always Always go to the Mass BRAC program and try and get it developed, right?
Hey, Catherine, quick question.
Mhm.
If I were to look up one of the properties that are on your list, should the name on the assessor's database and map geo match what's on this spreadsheet?
No, it would say Town of Norton now. The spreadsheet tells you who the original owner was or who we foreclosed it from.
What if it's a different name now?
It's a different name now. Have you found one with a different name?
I did. It's a neighbor. I know the house.
That doesn't surprise me.
And yeah. So
And yeah,
it's so that's what I was wondering is I was surprised to see it. I didn't recognize the name that's on your list. So I went to the assessor's database and it has the name that I'm familiar with.
wow.
And so does the map geo. but-
That's very interesting. And it's that parcel ID that you see on my list.
It matches, yeah, and there's a house on it.
And there's a house on it. Oh,
Is
that's
there anyone living in it, Laura?
Well, what was interesting is, yeah, there's been run-ins with this particular house and the occupants in it, and I have not seen them nor any cars in the driveway in quite a while. So I was like, oh, it got foreclosed, but then it says that the foreclosure date was 2005, and the names don't match. So now I'm very confused.
So Laura, you should send me an email with the property you're talking about. I will
Okay.
look into it.
All right,
That way it's not on camera here.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna say, is it possible that it was auctioned or sold at some point and just never
It's-
caught up
that's
on
what-
here?
that's what I'm thinking.
Anything is possible, Denise, because I'll tell you, this list, just knowing how many properties were already given to conservation that were still on it, I'm not confident that this list is as accurate as I would like it to be. The ones that I foreclosed on, I know are correct.
So, and what years would those be, Catherine?
It was, I believe, 2018. I just recently took the note off on this one. On the original list, it had it listed as new. Let's see. Yeah, parcel 10180 is the 16 Ridge Road one that I was telling you about. Then there's a property on Lincoln Street that I foreclosed on in 19. And there was one other one. And then there's one on John Scott Boulevard rear. I don't even know if it has access, that I foreclosed in 2019 as well.
So it would be what shows up from 2018 and 19? Just
It'll-
a handful of
It'll
properties?
just, yeah, you'll just see that on the date, on the foreclosed date, you'll see that the date is 2019. So those are the ones that I did.
So would it be in our best interest to do kind of what Laura just did, and in addition to getting these other data points, also do a cross-reference to the assessors?
Right, because
Database?
that's usually, yeah, that's typically where I would start on these. I would go to the assessor's database and check it myself and just see where's the property and whose name is on it. Hopefully it says Town of Norton.
If I
So-
could offer a suggestion, I would assume Map Geo is pulling from the assessor's office already,
I believe
from
it
the
is.
assessor's database. I don't think
Yes.
you need to go to the two
No.
different sites.
So as long as, so.
But
the
you
assumption-
should verify that the name that's on the list that Catherine has here and has shared with us matches what's on the Map Geo.
But I thought Map Geo should say Town of Norton.
Yeah, they should say Town of Norton, Laura.
Oh, right.
But they also may list the prior owner as well, because usually there's a history there. So it might list who that might have the name on my list and then the Town of Norton as the most
What?
recent.
Then I guess I would look and see if it just says it's not, if we have an issue, if it's not the Town of Norton listed.
Right, correct.
Not Town of Norton or matching
Or
column
matching
C.
Catherine's list.
I was gonna say, you could probably run an easy list off of the assessor's database, just put in Town of Norton as the owner, and then download
Right.
that, then that list and cross-check it against this pretty easily. Instead of going into each one, right?
Yeah, you should be able to do that. That's correct.
Is that the only place we can download it, or can we download it from Map Geo?
I don't think there's an export function on Map Geo that I've found yet.
You can download the list of properties.
Yeah, you can't, because remember when they did it for the 500?
But
Right,
how
all
do
it-
you,
We had to do
Oh,
it for the
just if you
marijuana.
did
We had
town
to
of
say all the
Norton.
addresses, right?
Yeah.
We
I
got that
think
from
it'll
Map
just give
Geo.
you a list, though. I think you're just gonna
It
get a
doesn't?
list. I don't know if it'll give you each property.
And unless there's something, so town of Norton, you could put in that and export that. But you'd need something else common to identify them to be able to.
Yeah.
To find them all.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess what I'll say, Cody, is if you need help on the assessor's website, talk to Denise. Sounds like she knows it, can export.
Yeah, I'm looking through it. That I'm already running into like just searching a few of them where it's not on the assessors based upon the map and lot numbers that are given. So
I was gonna say,
I did,
I'm definitely no expert on the assessor's database, but I have used it for a little research.
That sounds intriguing, doesn't it?
We'll just leave it at that.
Especially the hesitation on research. Okay, so I will get this spreadsheet up into a Dropbox location for everybody to have access to it to edit. Everybody on the EDC, and then we'll take Cody's lead.
is the Dropbox, is it going to be editable on
Yeah.
the Dropbox, or is that final?
No, I'll make it editable.
Okay.
The one that you have now is view.
Yeah, I downloaded it and started filling some stuff in so I can copy and paste it into whatever you upload to Dropbox.
Okay. Yeah, I have to create a new folder. I have it as a note. Actually, I better put it as a sticky note. Okay, any other questions for Catherine?
Catherine, is this list available to the public?
It is not. Once we fix it, maybe. I just would not feel comfortable putting that out onto the public with so many mistakes.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Catherine. I know this isn't typically one of your late nights, so
No.
I appreciate you spending time with us and informing us on this. And anyway, if something pops into your head about any other ways that we can help, certainly let us know.
I will do that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, good night.
Good night, Catherine. Okay. Well, I guess that file was, what was it down from, Laura? 300 and something?
325, I think. Somewhere
That's
around
not
there.
bad. About a third. And just for the record, I see Michael Toole has joined. Michael, I do know we were sharing, so I didn't see you join. Do you know the time that you came on?
About 7:30, 8:35.
Thanks, Michael. Denise, do you know your time?
About 7:18
Thank you. About 7:18.
approximately.
Okay. Okay, the next item for us, Oasis of Tranquility, the review of the submitted material. So a couple updates on this first, and I did talk to Tiffany earlier this week and informed her. I know there are some folks on from the group. I thought I saw Janice. Oh, there's Janice. Janice, I don't know if you talked to Tiffany, but really like the purpose of our discussion tonight is for the EDC to have some internal discussion and then come back to you guys with questions or additional information that we might need. So just so you guys are aware of that, there may be a question or two, but I'd ask you just to listen in and take notes as necessary. I know that there are, we've had some time. The two difficult things here are we had some time to review the initial material submitted, and then we have, I think, another 66 files that were recently submitted based on a change in location. So that's going to take the group some additional time, but my hope is, and I am looking at the time, and I'll ask for feedback from the EDC, but my hope is that we can at least kind of look at some of this from a a structure perspective, just so we know a direction that we need to go in and what we need to review. So having said that, first, let me ask you guys, I know this is item number 4. It's 7 minutes to 9 right now. Between items 5 and 9, is there anything high priority that we want to make sure that we talk about tonight? No? Okay. So let's spend some time on this so that we can figure out best approach and what information we need to reach out to the applicants on. So I sent the first thing that there was, I think, part of our discussion last time with the group was in respect to the zoning in that location. And Paul, I think that you looked this up and provided some insight as well, but from a perspective of manufacturing in the original location off of 124, that was zoned, I think, village commercial. That
Not 124?
what did I say?
124, it's
That doesn't exist. 140?
140 and 123. There's
Yep.
no 124.
I kind of mashed them together, Peter. That's called the Norton Common. So anyway, the property on 140, from a zoning perspective, while it did allow the marijuana establishment, it did not allow for the manufacturing. Is that correct, Paul?
Well, the village commercial didn't, but the overlay district does. So
Right.
It's one of those where town council may need to advise us on.
Well, no, because we were specific in the bylaw. It had to meet both conditions.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, village commercial does not
Right.
allow.
So
That's a.
It's a what? I'm sorry.
No, I mean, village commercial manufacturing is not an allowable use.
So let me look at my. My improperly subject line email. So just I don't expect that any of you have seen your email, but I sent it just so you have it for reference. And you should have received a separate email. I had to create a Dropbox because I couldn't add any files to the previous Dropbox that we had. And I think from what you guys said earlier, it came out separately. So what I had sent earlier today prior to the meeting was a forwarded email that myself, Paul, and Mike received from Tiffany in respect to a change in location. So 2 locations were listed on here. Oasis of Tranquility with a Tier 5 cultivation, product manufacturing, delivery operator at 0 Hill Street. I believe that's the location that we initially discussed. And then Queensbridge Group Incorporated, Tier 5 cultivation, product manufacturing, transportation at 0 South Washington Street. So the documents for both of those were put into a new Dropbox folder, separating them by the address. I want to say there's 30 or so for each of them to go through. I can pull it up and take a quick look. The unfortunate thing is it was on Google Docs. And so when I had to download them to get them up to Dropbox, I wasn't able to do it in the organized fashion that it was in on Google Docs. So apologies for that. It's a little, what I'll say, clunky because all the files are just in one folder. So let me just look real quick at one other thing here. If I could just ask Janice quickly, so that we understand where we need to focus. When I look at these, so you guys have 2 different locations, with the exception of the delivery app and the transportation. Am I to read this as you're looking at 2 different cultivation facilities, 2 different product manufacturing, and then a delivery operator in one and a transportation in the other?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay. I just clicked off of the email. Okay, and for the team, it was just for your reference. It's an email that that you should have received somewhere around 2:13 p.m. And I apologize, I didn't put the actual new Dropbox location in this because the invite came out. So give me 1 second here. And I can see if anybody has it up on their screen to go into the folders. To just take a quick look, please let me know. Otherwise, I just have to find it on mine.
Got it pulled up. Let me see if I can share it.
You don't have it, I've got it. I can bring it up if you got it. Which one do you want to go into?
This is the other one. Who's sharing?
I am
Michael?
on stop. I'll stop.
I did the one that I set up. It would have come out in a new invite.
So this is the one with the new invite. I just copied the address from the 213 email.
Yeah,
Renee,
that,
is this the one?
email was I was referring to the one that Nicole set up, the previous one. I couldn't add the documents to that one. I don't have permissions to add it. So I created a new Dropbox folder.
Yeah, are you looking for the one that has both the Hill Street and the Washington?
I've got it. I'm sharing the one that had both.
So you'll see, so I created a folder just called Oasis of Tranquility, and then subfolders for 0 Hill Street and 0 South Washington. And then I think you switch back to the other one.
Sorry, yeah.
So we could, Paul,
Renee, is
maybe,
that the 213 email, the 2:13 p.m. today email?
no, so the one that you're looking at is the one I referenced the previous Dropbox in that email. What I didn't do, I didn't give this link, but the link went out, and you should have a separate invite prior to that. Michael, probably, I don't know, like an hour maybe, at some point, an hour before that. And that's what Cody's on right now.
Okay. Let's see what I can find.
You'll see they were all modified today.
I see it. Thanks.
So in Google, it was separated by things like resume and bio, I think location, but I couldn't move them. I couldn't move them in that fashion. So Paul, we'll probably want to move these over to your Dropbox. I'm on the town one, so that might be something that we can easily do, and then add the new date on. If Cody, I think you had up the other one, right? The other
0 Hill or South Washington?
No, the initial. Did you have up the initial one? The one that I linked to in the email?
That one?
Yeah, this one here. So I believe, just based on the documents that went up, that this we probably just need to archive and look at the new documents.
This one?
The whole thing, because we have new documents as of the 14th. I believe based on the proposals at 0 Hill and 0 South Washington of multiple establishments.
Location?
Yeah, you can click on that. I think that they're like, how many pages is that, 2, Cody?
Yeah, the second one was just the key.
Okay.
Just the legend.
What are we in, Hill Street?
Yeah, this is the Hill Street location.
Okay. So I think click on one of the proposed facilities, right? So our initial discussion, like way back when, was on a greenhouse in this location. And I think it was structured very differently. So again, it's kind of like, we'll need to go through and look at it again. I'll ask the group if it's worth having the applicant go through and put the documents into one PDF with a table of contents for us to review. That'll allow us to jump around a little easier. I mean, you guys give me your preference or any sort of proposal.
I'd say a PDF or a PowerPoint, something that flows, so we know what we're referencing instead of having to click back and forth would probably be.
It would also be very helpful to understand what is, if anything, is still relevant from the May 5th package. I just need to know what I'm looking, I need a complete package. I need to know what I'm looking at.
Okay. Did anyone else lose audio for a second there or hear a beep? Just making sure the recording's still going. Okay. So I know they're on, but I'll shoot an email out. There were, Cody, if you can go back, I believe there was on both of them either a cover letter or.
Excuse me, Renee, were you calling for us? I'm sorry, miss.
I'm sorry, Tiffany, what was that?
Were you asking for one of us to respond?
No, I'll send you just a note of what would help the group out for us to go through these. You know, as I mentioned, moving them from Google over to Dropbox does not allow us to sort very easily. So I think, I mean, you guys can document it now, but I'll send you a note just asking that you take the documents that you have and put it in potentially a PDF with a table of content so that we're able to jump through the document versus going back and forth. Cody, there it is, the QB cover letter.
Yep.
Versus going back and forth throughout the folder.
And if you could also identify if there's anything from the package that was provided on our last meeting, May 5th, if any of that is still relevant, or if we should just be looking at the new information.
So I believe both of the folders have an overall proposal in them.
Yes, both of the proposals have an outline on them. We can just go through Dropbox as well. If it didn't work through the Google Drive, I'll put it all in one file PDF as well, but the outline, they are different because we have different licensures on each parcel. But the operational plans remain the same, the order mitigation, the core operation plans. The only thing that changes is the location, the security, everything else remains the same from May 5th.
Okay, and why are there two properties now?
So with that, looking into the zoning location at 64 Mansfield, it did not work for what we were going to do. And as when we first proposed, Janice and I both have interest in each other's joint venture partnership. So when we found both of these locations on Hill Street in South Washington, they are owned by the same owner and it's the same parcel. So we have interest on the property in the middle of it as well. We are working with the landlord, but in the meantime, you know, we wanted to secure the HCA's, one for Queensbridge and the other for Oasis on those locations.
Okay, wait, can you say that again? So these are adjacent properties?
So it's not, do you want me to pull up the maps for it, if that would help?
I think Cody, is there one that has both of them on there?
So it's pretty much the full city block between South Washington Street, passing the solar panels that are there to the waste management site. It's right at the end of the solars. So between the solars, there's another parcel that is available. However, we're still in negotiations with the owner of the property on that. We do have interest. Do you want to talk about it?
So, and you're saying near like what I'm going to call the bottom of the whale's tail?
Who can I send this to that can pull this up? Can I send you a map right now that has both of them on one?
Or I mean, if you want to share, that's fine too.
Okay,
if you
sure.
have it available.
On my screen. Right?
There's a zoning.
Yes. Janice is going to share it on her screen right now.
There it is.
Okay.
Cody, is this still you?
Yeah, I'll stop sharing.
Thanks. And you guys have muted yourself. I don't know if you're aware of that. Oh,
Yeah.
there we go.
So Janice is gonna share, she's gonna share it from hers.
While you're looking that up, are you guys planning to operate as two completely different businesses, just with different parts of the functions? Or are you
Yes.
gonna operate as one?
Yes, ma'am, it's gonna be two separate operations. With that, there are different licensors on there, but yes, two cultivation, manufacturing, one transport, one delivery operator.
So Renee, I'm assuming these would be two separate agreements as well that we'd
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah, I actually, Mike and I need to reach out to town council. I think what they've recommended in the past is they're going to be like 6 different agreements for one for each establishment. We'll have to have a conversation on it because we talked about it a long time ago about multiple establishments in one HCA.
One for each registration type or whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
So
but
Renee,
I'm not sure exactly right now.
So Madam Chair, I'm just confused. So the presentation we're about to see, is it for both? Is it for one? Is it, I can't believe, can someone get me off? I'm gonna stop talking.
It's really neither, Michael. We're just looking at the property for right now.
Okay.
At the 2 properties, because as they indicated, like my question was, how do we go from one property on 140 to 2 properties on Hill in South Washington? That's what I'm trying to understand. And Tiffany had indicated there's something in the middle. So, and I was just seeing your face, but now I see. So can you guys explain what we're seeing here?
Do you see my screen where I'm sharing the parcels?
Yes.
The screen. All right. So in the top, very top of the screen is 0 South Washington, and at the very bottom of the screen is 0 Hill. In the middle is the parcel where eventually, we'll be able to co-locate. But at the time, it's the same owner. We're working with him with the different parcels. Right now, it's the 2 ends of that parcel.
So are you planning just to be at that middle parcel that all I can read is the 699,000?
So, Madam Chair, if I may, just to try to add some clarity to this, looking at this particular map that we have up in front of you. So the proposal is to operate 2 different licensed facilities, one at the 0 Hill Street, one at the 0 Washington Street. The properties are actually connected by that center parcel. And it's the expectation that the businesses will be able to acquire that center parcel and in terms of future expansion and future opportunities, be able to join both ends with the middle, if you will.
And the middle being the part that has no handwriting on it.
That is correct, because that right now is raw land. It is not part of it's not part of either letter of intent or either if you will, the two anchors on either side. And that land separates them.
And then would you still have the one on the bottom that says lot 5?
That's the one, yes. That's
Yes.
0 Hill Street, yes.
Yes.
Lot
Okay.
5 is 0 Hill Street, yes.
So the final expectation is that everything you're showing us on screen would be part of these 2 projects.
Yes, it would. Yes.
Okay.
And one of the things, just to sort of, and I think, Madam Chair, you touched on this, but just to sort of develop this a little bit further, and again, to go further down the road with this, we would be expecting to have multiple HCAs, which again would reflect the various business operations taking place, and we think would inure to the benefit of Norton. So.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the group. I mean, well, actually, let me ask you guys real quick. So what was, back to Laura's initial question, what was presented to us initially by Janice on the Zero Hill Street property? Is any of that relevant in respect to a greenhouse, or what the potential, like we saw some conceptual, actually, I don't think it was conceptual drawings. I think we just saw some sample pictures. Is that like still part of the scope, or has it completely changed, kind of back to what you guys were talking about, it like an actual cultivation and manufacturing facility?
No, there would be, on Zero Hill Street, there would be a cultivation and manufacturing facility. And on Zero Washington Street, there would also be a cultivation and manufacturing facility. And then the proposal that's outlined, and we have provided that information, that identifies Oasis of Tranquility. That operation will have the delivery operator component, and the Queensbridge Group Incorporated operation will have the transportation component.
Okay, and neither will have a greenhouse.
Correct. There is no greenhouse.
Okay.
The proposals are for freestanding buildings to be constructed and on each parcel.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to suggest out to the group for feedback. I think we have a lot of files right now. We have a what I would call, for lack of a better term, a almost complete change in scope. I think we're going to need some time to review it. What I'd like to ask both Queensbridge and Oasis of Tranquility is that they do what we spoke of before, all the relevant documents per property or parcel put together in a PDF with a table of contents, so that we can go section by section to understand the location, the business plan, and et cetera. And then we can talk about timing. And if there's anything else that we want to request from them, please speak up.
Renee, can I just ask them?
Sure.
The property in between the two locations, you said there, did you say that that's a connection between the two of them? Could you explain that a little bit more? Because that's one of the solar facilities there.
That is correct. There is a letter of intent to utilize that as a solar facility. It's our expectation, or I should say our hope, that if we are licensed at the two locations that we're proposing, that we might be able to persuade the owner as to the efficacy of our type of proposal on that property. So that is in the future, but we hope to be able to be successful enough to acquire that under our own control, quite frankly. But yes, that is a parcel that has a letter of intent related to solar currently.
Okay. Any other suggestions from the EDC on next steps?
Just to be clear, Renee, you've asked them to consolidate all these documents into one document with a table of contents, right?
So
Not just a
per parcel. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Does that sound reasonable for you guys?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we'll provide that. We're taking notes. We'll get that consolidated. Everything that we've submitted, we can organize it as you suggested, and provide a table of contents and a package for each location.
Okay, that'd be great. And then where relevant, if there's any sort of crossover, if we could have that separately to understand how the businesses will integrate or commingle or leverage each other, whatever
Sure.
that might look like.
We can call that out, Madam Chair. We do have those questions answered in the materials that we have submitted, but we'll call that out specifically to address your concerns this evening.
Okay, that'd be great.
Madam Chair, can they also just make, I know they've answered it here, but can you just put in a summary, just a review of the property? Obviously, both package will have this diagram, but just a summary of just exactly what was said this evening. Because I'm still a little confused by it as well, of what role that middle part is going to be playing. So if they can just make sure that they put that in the description, defined with the scope of all the properties together.
We'll do that, and we do have a plan to incorporate that property and to achieve a joint use of that property. But we'll provide you with a narrative that encompasses that as well in the materials.
And is there a letter of intent already?
On, as to what?
That middle property. That's with someone else, right?
No, correct. Not with us.
Yeah.
But we have secured letters of intent for the other two properties.
If you cannot secure that middle property, will that, what will be the impact to the businesses on that with that?
That we don't expect that will have any negative or deleterious impact on our ability to operate out of those other two locations. We just think that in terms of economic development opportunities for the town of Norton, that acquiring that middle parcel in a joint venture would actually benefit the town as an opportunity to provide additional economic development. I'm gonna actually have Tiffany Isom come up and address that in particular. But as I said, we will provide you a narrative that does explain it. Tiffany?
Sure, thank you. So that we are clear, myself, I have been in talks with the owner of this property. Yes, there is a letter of intent on that middle with good intentions. We would like to, we've started a discussion of possibly all working together with the property owner, the solar that's going there, hence the reason cannabis, part of our mitigation for green energy is to incorporate solar. So it's a business conversation that without the HCA's or without, it's actually nothing that to be had until we're in that predicament. However, we have started that discussion. And so, yes, we are aware of that solar, and it does work specifically for cannabis, the solar as well. They don't have enough right now, provided what they have that lot they could share with us some. So it's like I said, it's a business conversation where it's a mutual agreement that we are looking to incorporate that actual solar. It's something that obviously, it's conceptual at this point. I did separate both packages. I also, if you'd like, we can drop off hard copies. So I did drop a hard copy off to Paul a little over a week ago, just because it is a little easier. It's over 355 pages. It's almost 60 documents. But I do feel that, everything that's required from all the way through planning has been addressed, and within 24 hours, we will, in a PDF form, have this stuff at you, and I will drop off, however people are on the chair, I'll drop those copies off for you as well, if that works.
Does anyone want a hard copy?
Electronic's fine with me.
Yeah,
Me
it's
too.
fine with me too. And I would just ask, and I'm sure this is going to happen when you PDF it, but just to make sure that it is searchable by text, given the size.
I'm sorry, searchable by what was that?
Text. So we can search and find a word, so we can jump to it in document. It should already do it, but there are times that we've seen that we didn't have that ability separately.
Absolutely. So with that outline as well, any appendixes or literature that you need, the cover page for each of them that are separate, they will walk you directly through each section. Again, it's so difficult to put it in one file, obviously, and send electronically to meet all of the, not just town, but CCC standards. So I 100% will get it to you in your preferred method.
Okay, that would be fantastic.
Got it.
Okay, anything else from the group? Okay.
Madam Chairman, what are the target dates? Are there target dates? Are there anything set, or is this take it as it comes?
So I know they have a proposal date timeline in each of the areas that I saw when I was uploading the documents. But I mean, if you guys want to share a timeline with us, that's great. But I'm going to be very careful about assigning a timeline, because there's a lot of documentation for us to review. And I also want to be cognizant of, I know you guys are talking about the additional property. I'm somewhat hesitant to look at the documentation that you're about to send to us, and on the off chance that it's going to change again. Just to be truthful and transparent, I don't want to waste anyone's time by looking at things that in a couple of weeks are going to be irrelevant.
Madam Chair, I can assure you and the members of the commission, the substance of our proposal is not going to change. We have it locked down. We're very comfortable with it. And in terms of timeline, we've provided some projections in terms of our build down schedule. But frankly, until we get a favorable recommendation from the EDC to the select board, and until licenses issue and HCA agreements are worked out, that at that point, then we will be at first base, or really at probably home plate at that time, headed hopefully to first base. So we have to get through this vetting process. We have to satisfy the Economic Development Committee, and then we have to satisfy the Board of Selectmen, and then we have to get a license, and that will actually start our timeline. So I think maybe perhaps the timeline question was more to what is the expectation from the committee as to when you will have this material and when you will be able to vet this material again. And we're going to do our utmost to provide this to you, to get that scannable, searchable PDF to you. I know Tiffany indicated within 24 hours, we're going to strive to achieve that, but we'll certainly get that to you as quickly as we can. And then I think the next question is, to the extent that the commission has any questions, having us back to answer those questions, and to make sure that you're comfortable having fully vetted the proposals. So in terms of timelines, from our perspective, we obviously are looking for a favorable recommendation. We are obviously looking for certain licenses to issue from the select board. At that point, then we go to the Cannabis Control Commission at the state level. And as soon as that approval is obtained, then we really are at that point shovels in the dirt. So in terms of timelines, it's how quickly do you want to reconvene this so that you can review the materials that we're going to be providing to you. And I can assure you that the substance of what we've already provided is not going to change. So you'll have a searchable document so you can vet it, you can ask us questions, and do what you need to do to put us through those processes.
Sure. So Michael, can you read a 300-page document in 2 weeks, come back with questions?
Love it.
I mean, I think we'll plan. My intention would be to put the same topic on the next meeting agenda, and we'll see what happens over the next 2 weeks. Right. I think we have a holiday in there. I don't know if anyone's traveling, so that can certainly.
As long as Denise doesn't give me a pop quiz, I think I'll be okay.
We'll certainly get those materials to you in advance of your next meeting, and we will be present at your next meeting to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, that sounds good. And maybe we'll consider too, guys. So I'll put those out on. If it's small enough, I'll email it so everybody has their own copy. If not, I'll put it out on Dropbox, and then I'll put a separate copy to edit so that in the PDF you can put your own comments. And then we can always send that back collectively if we need to. It's not something that we'll be able to discuss, but if we can compile some information beforehand, that might help.
And if you have any questions, even if it's at the next meeting, if we're taking notes, so we're happy to provide you with written responses with references to where the answers are in our submission materials. So whatever will help you thoroughly vet this application. Obviously, that's what we're willing to do, and that's what we're going to do. That's what we're committed to do. So.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. So with that, I know the time is 9:27. Unless there's anything else that you guys want to discuss, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Yes, adjourn. Was that Denise?
Second.
Okay, we'll do roll call. Sandy?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Michael?
Sorry I was late. Aye.
And I too say yes. And we will end this meeting at 9:28. Okay, thank you guys so much. I'll communicate via email when we have additional documents to review. Okay, have a great night.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Renee. Paul and the gang. Good
Good
night.
night, Peter.
Good night. Good night, Renee. And Cody and
Good night. Welcome.